Hey guys, welcome back to Daska Discusses. Because it's May the 4th, or it was yesterday, I thought, well, why not go with my second Star Wars review? And this time, well, obviously, a couple of weeks ago I did episode 1. Now I'm going to be looking at, Star Wars episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Let's do this. And of course, FYI guys, there will be some major spoilers if you haven't seen episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Just putting it out there. And just before I start my discussion, guys, my discussion today is in memory of Peter Mayhew, who played Chewbacca in a lot of the Star Wars films. May he rest in peace. Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, was directed by George Lucas and came out in 2002. And well, what can you say, guys? Just when you thought, well, I don't know, just when you thought that maybe George Lucas could fix up what was a bit of a train wreck with The Phantom Menace. I know people like Phantom Menace. I'm just going by my review and my discussion that I came up with. Out comes Attack of the Clones. Now I thought the best way to go through this discussion is to split it up into 3 categories. The good of Attack of the Clones, the bad, and the downright ugly of Attack of the Clones. So let's do this. Now the synopsis for Attack of the Clones, well, basically 10 years after the events of Phantom Menace, you've got Obi-Wan and Anakin. Obi-Wan and Anakin meet up, and there's been an attack on Padme from an assassin. So they're trying to work out who did that. Then you've got this whole thing about them protecting him in the first act of the movie, and then Anakin's sent on Naboo to protect her when she goes down there, and then Obi-Wan is sent on another mission to find out who the assassin was and finds out about the clone army, etc. I'm not going to bog down into the storyline, guys. This is not a review per se. You've seen the film. I'm going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. So let's start off with the good. Look, I'll give it this. The good parts of the Attack of the Clones are as follows. 1, some sets look good, okay? One of my favorite ones is the Camino planet, right? Where Obi-Wan goes down and he ends up finding about the clone army, not per se inside there, more the outside parts. Now I know the majority of the film is all digital and green screen effects, but the fight between Obi-Wan and Jango Fett out in the rain on Camino is quite memorable. Apart from the fact that Obi-Wan does get blown up a few times, which you'd think, okay, he'd be dead from all that, but that whole set and that whole sequence I gave it a tick from me. Following on from that, Naboo. All the parts with Padme and Anakin going down to Naboo and, the gondola ride and all that, yeah, we know it's all the whole romance behind it, but when George Lucas is actually filming on location, which is pretty rare in the film as well, I think he really did a good job that. It actually, you can feel that, Naboo's a nice romantic place, and I know he was going with that with his film, with that whole romance plot. You could pretty much call it the plot because the rest of it is a subplot. The whole point of the film is the whole romance between Anakin and Padme, and we'll get to that in another time. But that whole part there when he gives that cringy dialogue about how he loves sand and it doesn't love sand, and it's rough and it's coarse and it gets everywhere. Yeah, that whole sequence there, it looks amazing, alright? I'll give it that. John Williams' score, again, just with The Phantom Menace, with Duel of the Fates, I think Across the Stars, the love theme of Star Wars, is highly memorable and is still used a lot. I think in the Oscars they used it a few times to show a few montages as well, but Across the Stars, that score specifically is really good. Some later renditions further in the film of the Imperial March, which again is okay, but it's good to hear it every now and then. There's a really good sequence when Anakin who's on his speeder and he's speeding through to get to the Tusken Raiders, and there's a bit of a Duel of the Fates kind of theme that kicks in as well. That was really good. So I give the score for Attack of the Clones a thumbs up from me as well. Another point that I think deserves some credit is the Anakin Dooku fight. Now, not the whole thing. Maybe just a little snippet, maybe like 3 to 5 seconds of it when the lights get cut off and you see Dooku and Anakin's face and the blue and red hazes of the lightsabers. I really like just that 5-second sequence there. A lot of people didn't like it. As far as the fight goes, it wasn't actually the best fight in the film. To be honest, there wasn't really that many good fights in the film anyway, but that whole 5 seconds where the lighting goes off and you see those hazes there, again, it looks like they're just spinning around on top of their heads, the lightsabers, but it does look pretty good, I reckon. I like that bit. And probably my favourite part of the film, which I'm really struggling here, but my favourite part and a good part of the film is with Anakin when he keeps getting the visions about his mother, dying or something like that, and he ends up tracking down the Sand People, after I think his Uncle Owen tells him, or not Uncle Owen, Lars tells him where, not Uncle Owen, I think it's her husband or whatever, ends up telling him where she is, so he tracks them down and he finds her and she passes away, which is quite emotional as well. And at that point with Hayden Christensen, even though he's very wooden acting throughout the film, that part there, when he actually gets his lightsaber out and does massacre a lot of the Sand People, and not just the men, but the women and the children. Countless memes are made about that as well, but I think that's a really strong part of the film, and it's a shame that it's cut short. So there are my good parts of Attack of the Clones. So now let's talk about the bad points of Attack of the Clones. Number one for me, definitely the overuse of digital. Now I'm talking about green screen, okay? I'm talking about basically every background, and you can watch the making of it as well, that everything's so dense and there's so much stuff happening, like the producer said, Rick McCallum. But that whole thing about basically walking around and people walking and talking, sitting on couches and talking, looking out windows talking, like other reviewers have said, and just by watching the movie, there's too much of the green screen use. Not only that, it just gets worse as the movie goes on, okay? The conveyor scene of the film as well, near the, I guess in the middle of the second act of the film, with Anakin going through that conveyor belt, and there's Padme, and she gets put into this big pot, and the lava and the the steel is going to pour into it, and then 3PO gets taken off and he starts with those stupid one-liners. That's a really bad point in my book. I just really didn't like that whole sequence. And that leads on to the arena scene where you've got this massive arena with all these bugs, and then you've got Jango Fett's there and the Viceroy as well, and they're all trying to work out, they're all going to kill the Jedi, and then Count Dooku's there, and then there's a huge battle between all these Jedi and lightsabers and all the bugs and everything, and all this stuff that's happening. It's just way too much digital effects. The acting. Now, not so much Natalie Portman, and, well, look, what we're going to say, it's more of the, like with the Phantom Menace, a lot of people didn't like Jake Lloyd. I thought he did a good job as a little kid, but with this, you've got Hayden Christensen, Natalie Portman, this whole like romance that's happening. It's just a bit of a mess, okay? It's a total mess in terms of dialogue, but it's also the whole fact that Hayden Christensen himself, it's just so wooden and it's so boring, the dialogue they're actually saying, and it's just so cringeworthy. Now you've got all these scenes of them in these meadows, etc. Sitting there having a picnic, and then by the fireplace, there's all this romantic stuff happening, but the dialogue is just shocking, and that's coming from the acting. And I'm sorry, but Hayden Christensen's acting in this is a bad point in my book. And my final bad point that I want to point out is, obviously, is the Obi-Wan subplot of him trying to find the assassin of Padme. Now, I know some of you are probably thinking, well, no, that's part of the story, but I just didn't like how it was done, how he tracked down this dart and he goes to Dex in that stupid diner, then he gets sent down to Camino, and then he sees all these clones and they've been waiting for him, and Cypher Diaz. It's just too confusing. And now for the ugly parts of Attack of the Clones. Well, start off at number one for me has got to be the Master Yoda and Count Dooku fight. Now, I remember watching this in the cinema opening night as well. I was with a whole big bunch of friends, and I kind of like promised them, listen, it's not going to be like the Phantom Menace. It's going to be a lot better. George Lucas has definitely learned from his mistakes, etc. Now, mind you, me being a fan since I was a kid, and a lot of other people, getting friends on board with Star Wars as well, I just felt that that whole scene where Master Yoda fights Dooku is just really cringeworthy. Why? Well, you had this whole persona of you had this whole feeling of Master Yoda in Empire Strikes Back saying, size matters not, yeah? And then in all that, you've got him and Dooku fighting off with the Force, throwing rocks at each other, trying to kill each other, and then we get to this lightsaber sequence where they fight and Yoda jumps around like Sonic the Hedgehog or Banjo-Kazooie, and it's just it's a laugh. Like, I remember people laughing in the cinema, and I just facepalmed myself. I remember vividly thinking, what the hell is going on? So the Yoda fight scene for me definitely didn't do it. It just totally wrecked the end of the film for me. The whole Clone War after the arena sequence, where you've got the Separatists and the clones fighting, it literally was straight out of Battlefront 2, or Star Wars Battlefront, the old one. And and did not give anyone any kind of like emotional effect to the film or what's actually going on, what's at stake here. No, it was literally like watching a video game. Things just exploding everywhere, all these special effects, the clone troopers, who cares, whatever, total mess. That was an ugly part of the film. The forced love story, another ugly part of the film. Yes, we know the whole plot, not the whole plot, but 80% of the plot deals with Anakin and Padme, how they fall in love, and then obviously in the third one, you know, you got the birth of Luke and Leia as well and all that, but just that whole, it was cringeworthy, the dialogue was so wooden. I mean, come on, there's so many memes that have been made from this film, the sand quotes, this and that, it's just, yeah, that whole forced love story where we can't do anything, you know, I'm a senator, I'm a Jedi, we're not meant to love. It's just too much for me, and it was just really took it away from the film. What else what could have George Lucas done? Maybe he could have maybe he could have had more of the story on what other moments led him to the dark side, apart from the one where his mother dying. Maybe focus in on that more, have some sort of love story happening, but the way they did it, it's just too much of a romance film for me. Another ugly part and a pet peeve of mine is C-3PO as a robot. Well, we know he's a robot, but when he gets his head interchanged with a droid soldier and he starts saying, "Die, Jedi, die, die," that was just an ugly part of the film. And when people talk about the prequels and how Last Jedi felt prequely at points, that is the things I kind of look at. This cringeworthy humor that's just it's just a stain on the Star Wars name. And I'm sorry, George, if you're listening. It just didn't work for me, that humor. It was an ugly part. And the part, my part here that I'm going to discuss now, one of the most ugliest parts, if not the ugliest part, I think is the whole opening, not the opening sequence, but where Anakin and Obi-Wan are trying to chase this assassin through Coruscant, right? And they get into their speeder and Obi-Wan's like, "Well, you've lost him." He's like, "I'm sorry, master." Well, if you excuse me, and he jumps off the chaser, and Obi-Wan turns and he goes, "I hate it when he does that," like as if he's talking to the audience. Now, when Anakin flies through Coruscant, this kind of Fifth Element-like kind of view, I know George Lucas took inspiration from that. That whole thing when he's flying through and he finds the actual ship or the speeder that the assassin is on, that whole bit is one of the most ugliest moments and one of the worst moments in Attack of the Clones, because it's just so cringeworthy, so un-Star Wars-like, silly humor, ridiculous. It is ridiculous how that could happen. He jumps out and then he finds the speeder in all that chaos. Really, really bad part for me. No, not bad, ugly. Those were my ugly parts. So in summing up Attack of the Clones, this has been a shorter review to my Phantom Menace because, well, put it this way, I had to think how I'm gonna discuss Attack of the Clones. Well, I put it into good, bad, ugly. It was a total disaster of a film, and I find that it is the worst out of all the Star Wars films that have come out to this day. Yep, that's my take on Attack of the Clones. Now, if you had to give it a rating out of 10, well, I think I gave Phantom Menace a 6 or a 6.5 out of 10. Now, taking Attack of the Clones where it's at and where I said about the bad and ugly parts, minusing all those parts and adding the good parts, which were the score, some of the sets, some tiny little light sequences when they're doing the lightsaber fight with Dooku, but really, this fails as a Star Wars film. Giant fail for me. Attack of the Clones, I barely watch it these days, even though I'm a huge Star Wars fan as well. But to get myself to bring myself to watch this sometimes is very cringeworthy, okay? And it's just painful to watch. It is painful. And then you go from Phantom Menace, which you thought you're in a bit of pain. This one just ups the ante, and you know what? Please, give me my medicine so I can go to sleep so I don't have to watch this anymore. Attack of the Clones, for me, the score gives it a point. Some of the sets give it a point. And some minor little details about a couple of that lightsaber sequence, and well, that's it. I give Attack of the Clones a 4.5 out of 10. Not even a pass for me. I'm sorry if you don't agree. And as always, guys, if you like this video, please leave a like. Please comment down in the comments below. Let me know what you thought of Attack of the Clones and what rating you would give it, and what were your favorite bits or worst bits. Let me know, please. I want to hear. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and if you enjoy my videos, guys, and keep up to date with my videos. And I'll see you guys on the next episode on Daska Discusses. Boom!